Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Paul and today we're taking a look at the Boruit EV15. First of all, thank you to Boruit for sending this review sample along. They did provide the unit, however they provided no monetary compensation and they had no input into the final outcome of this video or any early access to it. That said, I did receive the product for free and I'm doing my best to separate that from the normal user experience. Now let's go ahead and jump into a little bit of a size comparison with channel staples 58mm and 91mm for Sami knives, a AA and AAA, and we all know you love a good old girth comparison. And since we have a little bit of a history with Boruit on this channel, let's go ahead and do some comparisons there with a V15 and a V20, I think. And then with a V30 and a U6. Thank God they write the models on the flashlights. So as you can see, this is on the smaller end in general, but also particularly when it comes to Boruit themselves. And now take a deeper look at the design itself. We have an aluminium casing with two buttons with built-in LED indicators for charging and whatnot, a diffused side panel light, and 3 forward emitters. These are white and the central one is UV. We have a deep carry clip which will bury all but the very tail of the light in your pocket, which does go backwards for mounting on the cap or whatnot. A very well integrated lanyard hole along with a flat base for tail standing, and is also magnetic for attaching to things. On the side for charging, we have the cursed rubber flappy for a USB-C charging port protection. And for grip and a bit of design, we have this kind of milled out triangular pattern, which does the job, as well as what I'm going to call some heat fin milling here. Could just be for styling, but it does also provide a little bit of thermal help. I imagine very, very little. Now let's go ahead and jump into the brightness and run times of the Boruit EV15. Feel free to pause if you would rather go through yourself, but on economic mode, which I guess is what they call their moonlight equivalent, you get 10 lumens for 37 hours, low you'll get 70 lumens for 7.7 hours, medium 150 lumens for 5 hours, and high you get 720 lumens, stepping down to 180 lumens after. They don't include any step down time information, but for a total of 2.3 hours. Now, turbo is going to be 1000 lumens, which then steps down to 220, and that'll give you a total runtime of 2 hours. But again, you're only going to get turbo for a minute or two before you hit that step down in reality. And strobe is going to give you 9.75 hours, and SOS 3 hours. On the side lights and the special modes in general, the UV light is going to give you 5 hours, white light 8.8 hours, and then you're going to be around 20 to 30 for all the other special disco lights. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the UI. As is generally customary for Boruit, we have 2 buttons here operating different modes. However, the UI this time is a little bit different. Typically, when you get a Boruit light, when you press, you get nothing, press and hold, you get turbo, and then you have to double click to get in. Kind of a, locked from standard. They've kind of changed this now where you can just press to turn on, and this does have mode memory, and then pressing will cycle you through like normal. So this is economic, low, medium, high, and then turbo. And then actually to go off, you will generally have to press and hold. There are times where you can just press to turn off, but I think that's just turbo, to be honest. Disco mode. The UI is a bit of a mix, shall we say. It feels like Boruit is caught between their traditional UI and more common UIs. If you want to use the special modes, this is going to work both the side light and the UV on the front. So one press is going to give you that UV. And pressing again will turn off. If you want to go to the side light, you're just going to double press, and that will bring you onto whatever you last used. This is the white light. And pressing will just step you through the different colors and the different modes. Here we have our rainbow teardrop. Police mode, if you want to do that for whatever reason, and then back. Now, separately, you get all of the different colored modes if you just double click and then go through, but you also have a separate triple click on this where you get different colored kind of, waterfall effects, I guess, which is a thing. Now, let's go into general thoughts and pros for the Boruit EV15. Now, side panel lights have been a thing in the EDC world for quite a while, and there's generally two different styles. We have the style that Boruit has been accustomed to, which some people may be more familiar with, having been, I guess, popularized in a lot of ways by brands like Rovivon, and on the other end of a more affordable thing, the Nightcore Tiki, where you just have these individual LEDs clearly visible, exactly the same on Boruit's previous models, to get the job done. But then there's also other approaches to side lights as well. You can have more dedicated spotty lights like these, or what is becoming very trendy and in vogue right now is this style, this kind of strip lighting. Now, recently on the channel we did cover a more expensive version with the SK015. However, we did also have a history of this kind of thing as well with things like the Sofin IF23 and 24. So this is the first time that I am reviewing a Boruit light with this style of side light, and it's one of their first forays into this as far as I'm aware. I know there are multiple models with this kind of light, and I think I have another one coming. But in general, it's their first general foray into doing this kind of thing. And I've got to say, it's overall impressive in a lot of ways. This is a very small, very compact light. I mean, even against a Victorinox Classic, this is not big. It's also not particularly heavy, even though you do get that premium metal construction. Big, nice, easily visible buttons for pressing. The physical design on this is generally very well done. They've crammed a lot into a very small body, and they've done so whilst making it feel fairly premium for the price. This comes in at around, I think, $32, which is pretty reasonable. You can typically get that cheaper on sale or with coupons, and there will be a link to this down in the description below. As far as performance, the beam is very floody, very EDC friendly in my opinion. You have these two kind of almost tier style optics, and they are spread out a little bit, so you get a very wide diffuse beam, and there will be beam shots up here, and that is fantastic for general EDC purposes. Obviously, if you want something a little bit more throwy, then you should carry something separately or something that does both. But for general purpose EDC, this is going to be great for a lot of people. USB-C charging is going to be very convenient for a lot of people. And the combination of the flat tail, magnetic tail, and side light is going to give you a lot of options. The UV light is a little bit niche, however, there are a lot of applications for UV light. And whilst I will say that UV is generally not going to be something that I say you definitely should have in every EDC light, I think everyone should have a UV source of some kind in their collection, and this does a fairly decent job of it. Be it for checking for stains, checking currency, or one thing I do as I am deep in the EDC rabbit hole is use it to cure UV sensitive epoxy. Now, this is great value, this is overall a great light, but it's not a perfect light. So let's go ahead and talk about the cons. First of all, the UI is, I mean, it's a Boruit UI. It's better in some ways, as you don't have to fight their double click nonsense. However, it's also frustrating in that you get stuck in this cycling through, and then you have to remember, oh, I have to hold to turn off. As with everything, a UI complaint is generally grating, but if this is the only thing you carry, it will become less annoying over time as you'll remember how to use it. If you go between lights, if you rotate, if you use different lights for different purposes, this is going to remain some degree of annoying, but I don't think it's a deal breaker. It's just a little bit of friction. Overall, this is a good light. This performs well. However, my main criticism is going to be that side light. This is very short. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It still is usable. However, it's not, get through to actual, there we go. It's not particularly bright, even on its highest. Let me go ahead and try and get a dark shot. So even when we're taking into account that this is single mode, this is not the brightest of things. Is it usable? Yes. Is it bright? No, not really at all. This is not a great amount of light, especially considering the width of the emitter that you're actually using here. Another thing is, besides not having multiple brightnesses and a low overall brightness, the tint of this white is very, very blue, bordering on almost purple. I am not a tint snob. I generally don't care, don't mind what tint my light comes in. However, this is bordering on unacceptable in my opinion. This is very reminiscent of cheap lights from like 15 years ago. I thought we were really past this kind of awful tinting in main brands, and I would consider Boruit a main brand at this point. They have enough of an established history, enough of a footprint, and generally speaking, they don't have these kind of problems ever, as far as I'm aware. So this was a little bit disappointing. But that side light, whilst it does a lot of potential and it does still have some viable use, it is not useless. The tint, they need to do better. It just needs to be better. Even if this is a budget light, it's not like this costs $1, right? And that's a very ugly, distorting color. I would like to see multiple brightnesses, and I would like to see a higher overall brightness just to make this more usable overall. However, it's not all doom and gloom. Whilst the UI is clunky and the side light is of limited functionality, this is a robust, tough little guy that I have found working its way into my pocket increasingly more. Will this stay in my pocket inevitably? No, but it has been working its way in more than what is in some ways a better light thing like the model V20. Just because there's something more compelling about it, and maybe it's that metal body that gives you a more reassuring feeling in the hand, but there is something very compelling here. And whilst there are notable issues, I do think there is value here, especially at the price point they're asking, and if you can get it on sale or with a coupon code, even better. So would I recommend the Boruit EV15? Yes, as long as you're okay with the compromises that I've laid out. That said, let me know what are your thoughts on Boruit in general and the EV15 in particular down in the comment section down below. And I'd love to subscribe and like whilst you're down there. It does greatly help the channel, and we'd be very happy to help. Now, if you're considering helping the channel out even more, please consider a look at our Ko-fi or Patreon subscriptions down in the description as well. It does help put new content on the channel, as keeping up with EDC is expensive. But I've been Paul, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.